My name is Emily Carter, and the day my father was buried was the day I discovered my family had been keeping secrets from me. The cemetery was cold that morning. Rain had been falling since sunrise, turning the ground around my father's grave into thick mud. I stood beside my mother, holding a black umbrella. Across from me was my older brother, Michael. He looked strangely calm. Almost relieved. Dad had been gone for only 3 days. Yet Michael was already talking about the company. About the house. About the bank accounts. About what he believed Dad had left behind. I couldn't understand how he could think about money at a time like that. Then, as everyone began walking away from the grave, Michael came toward me. He stopped beside me and quietly said, "You get nothing." I looked at him. "What?" He leaned closer. "You heard me. Michael, this is Dad's funeral." He gave me a cold smile. "Exactly. And you should understand something before the lawyers get involved." "What are you talking about?" "Dad left everything to me." I stared at him. "That doesn't sound like Dad." Michael shrugged. "You were never his favorite." Those words hurt more than I wanted to admit. For years, I tried not to compare myself with my brother. Michael had always been the successful one. The businessman. The son Dad proudly introduced to everyone. I was simply Emily. The daughter who lived quietly, worked hard, and never asked Dad for money. But I never thought Dad would leave me nothing. Michael walked away. I remained beside the grave. Then I heard a phone ringing. At first, I thought it was someone else's. But the sound was coming from the cemetery office. The funeral director hurried toward me. "Mrs. Carter." "Yes?" He held up a phone. "This was found in your father's coat." My heart stopped. "Dad's phone?" He nodded. "But it's been ringing repeatedly." I took it from him. The screen show. An unknown number. I almost ignored it. Then another call came through. Same number. I answered. "Hello." For several seconds, there was only silence. Then a man's voice whispered. "Emily Carter." "Yes. Your father told me to call you after the funeral." I looked around. "Who are you?" "My name is Daniel." "Daniel who?" "I can't explain over the phone." "Then why are you calling me?" He paused. Then said, "Because your brother is lying to you." My heart began pounding. "What do you mean?" "Your father didn't leave everything to Michael." I looked toward my brother. He was standing near the cars. Watching me. Daniel continued. "There is something your father wanted you to know." "What?" "Your father left instructions." "What instructions?" "Find the blue envelope." I frowned. "Where?" "In his study." I looked at the phone. "Who are you really?" But the call ended. That evening, I went to Dad's house. Mom was in the kitchen. Michael was already there. He was sitting at Dad's desk. When he saw me, he immediately stood. "What are you doing here?" "I came to get some of Dad's things." Michael shook his head. "You don't need to. It's Dad's house." "Not anymore." I stared at him. "What?" He smiled. "Dad left the house to me." I couldn't believe it. "You already know the contents of the will." "Yes." "Have you seen it?" He paused. "Of course." "Where is it?" "Why?" "Because I want to read it." Michael's expression changed. "You don't trust me?" "No." He laughed. You should have learned that years ago. Then he walked out. I waited until he disappeared. Then I went upstairs. Dad's study was locked. But I remembered the spare key. It was hidden behind an old family photograph. I opened the door. Everything was exactly as Dad had left it. His books. His desk. His old leather chair. And the photograph of our family. I searched every drawer. Nothing. Then I noticed something unusual. One of the books on the shelf was slightly pulled forward. I removed it. Behind it was a small compartment. Inside was a blue envelope. My hands began shaking. On the front were 3 words. For Emily only. I opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter. Dad's handwriting. I read the first line. If Michael tells you that you inherited nothing, don't believe him. I stopped breathing. Then I read the next line. The will you are about to see is not the final will. I looked toward the door. Suddenly, I heard footsteps in the hallway. Someone was coming. I quickly folded the letter. The door opened. Michael stood there. He stared at the envelope in my hand. His face went completely pale. Then he whispered. Where did you find that? I didn't answer. Because I finally understood something. Michael wasn't surprised that Dad had left a secret. He was terrified that I had found it. Michael stood in the doorway. His eyes were fixed on the blue envelope. Where did you find that? I held it tightly. Why? Because Dad's study was private. So was Dad's phone. His expression changed. What are you talking about? I stepped toward him. Someone called me after the funeral. Michael went completely still. Who? I don't know. What did they say? I watched his face carefully. They said Dad didn't leave everything to you. Michael laughed, but it sounded forced. Emily, you're grieving. Maybe. I held up the letter. But Dad wrote this before he died. His smile disappeared. What does it say? I didn't tell him. Instead, I walked past him. He grabbed my arm. Give me the envelope. I pulled away. Don't touch me. For the first time, I saw fear in my brother's eyes. Not anger. Fear. I left Dad's house and drove straight to the law office mentioned on his old business cards. Harrison and Cole Attorneys. A receptionist recognized my father's name immediately. Mr. Harrison is expecting you. I froze. Expecting me? Yes. She led me into a private office. An elderly man stood behind the desk. He had been Dad's lawyer for more than 20 years. Emily. How? Did you know I was coming? Your father told me you would. He opened a drawer and removed a folder. Before he died, your father gave me instructions. What instructions? He looked at me seriously. If Michael tells you that you inherited nothing, don't argue with him. I stared at him. Why? Because he doesn't have the complete will. My heart started racing. You're saying Michael lied. I'm saying he only knows part of the story. Mr. Harrison opened the folder. Inside was a copy of Dad's official will. I scanned the pages. The house. The company. The investment accounts. Everything seemed to go to Michael. Then I reached the final page. There was a handwritten note. This document is incomplete without Schedule B. I looked up. What's Schedule B? Mr. Harrison didn't answer. Where is it? That's the problem. It's missing. He nodded. Your father kept it separately. Where? We don't know. I remembered the blue envelope. Maybe Dad left a clue. Mr. Harrison looked at me. What clue? I showed him the letter. He read it. His expression immediately changed. Your father actually gave this to you? Yes. He turned the paper over. At the bottom was a small handwritten number. 742. Mr. Harrison whispered. Of course. What? Room 742. Where? Carter Plaza. I stared at him. What is in room 742? Your father's private records. That evening, I drove to Carter Plaza. The building was almost empty. I found the elevator and pressed 7. When I reached the 7th floor, I followed the hallway until I saw the number. 742. The door was locked. I called the building manager. 20 minutes later, he arrived. Your father specifically told us never to open this room. Why? I don't know. He handed me the key. I opened the door. Inside was a small office covered in dust. There were boxes everywhere. Old financial records. Photographs. Business contracts. And one large metal cabinet. I opened the first drawer. Nothing unusual. The second. Nothing. The third was locked. I found a key taped underneath Dad's desk. It opened the drawer. Inside was a single black folder. On the front. Schedule B. My hands trembled. I opened it. The first page listed Dad's properties. The second listed his investments. The third listed the company. Then I reached the final page. My name was there. Emily Carter, 60%. I couldn't breathe. Michael wasn't the sole heir. He wasn't even the majority beneficiary. I read the page again. Then I noticed something strange. There was another name beneath mine. Beneficiary, Emily Carter, provided she discovers the truth before the final distribution. I stared at those words. Discovers what? Suddenly, I heard footsteps outside. I closed the folder. Someone was approaching. The door opened. Michael walked in. I stepped backward. How did you find me? He didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the black folder. You found Schedule B. I said nothing. He slowly closed the door behind him. Emily, listen to me. No. You don't understand. I understand enough. He shook his head. Dad wasn't trying to give you the company. Then why is my name on the document? Because it's not really about the company. I froze. What does that mean? Michael took a deep breath. Dad discovered something about our family. What? He looked at me. Something Mom never told us. Before I could respond, his phone rang. He looked at the screen. His face turned pale. He answered. Hello. A voice came through the speaker. I couldn't hear everything. But I heard one sentence clearly. They found the document. Michael slowly looked at me. Then the call ended. I whispered. Who was that? Michael didn't answer. Instead, he said. We have to leave. Why? Because whoever has been watching Dad's documents knows you found Schedule B. I stared at him. Who? Michael looked toward the locked door. Then he whispered. The person Dad was afraid of. Michael grabbed my arm. We need to leave. Now. I pulled away. I'm not going anywhere until you tell me who that was. He looked toward the door. I don't know. You're lying. I wish I was. For the first time, my brother looked genuinely frightened. Then we heard footsteps in the hallway. Michael turned off the lights. We stood silently in the dark. The footsteps stopped outside room 742. Someone tried the door. Michael whispered. Don't move. The handle turned again. Then a voice came through the door. Mr. Carter. I know you're in there. Michael's face went pale. I recognized the voice. It was Mr. Harrison, Dad's lawyer. Michael quickly opened the door. Mr. Harrison stepped inside and locked it behind him. Thank God you're both here. I stared at him. What is happening? He looked at the black folder in my hands. You found Schedule B. Yes. Then your father was right. About what? Mr. Harrison took a deep breath. Someone has been trying to find that document for years. I looked at Michael. Who? Mr. Harrison didn't answer immediately. Instead, he asked. Did either of you notice anyone following you? No. Any strange calls? I remembered the unknown number. Yes. His expression changed. What did they say? I told him everything. He looked at Michael. Your father expected this. Michael frowned. What did Dad know? Mr. Harrison opened his briefcase. Inside was an old photograph. He placed it on the desk. It showed Dad standing outside his first business office. Beside him was another man. I had never seen him before. Who is that? Mr. Harrison answered. Thomas Reed. Michael frowned. Dad's old business partner. Yes. I looked at the photograph. Why would he matter now? Because Thomas didn't simply leave the company. Mr. Harrison paused. He claimed your father stole his share. What happened? They went to court. And? Dad won. No. I stared at him. What? The case was settled privately. Mr. Harrison opened another file. Your father paid Thomas a large amount of money and received complete control of the company. I looked at the documents. Then what's the problem? Mr. Harrison pointed to the final page. There was a hidden condition. My stomach tightened. What condition? Thomas retained a claim to a portion of the company if certain information was ever discovered. I looked at Schedule B. That's why someone wants this. Mr. Harrison nodded. But there's more. He pulled out another document. This is the agreement between your father and Thomas. I read it carefully. Then I saw something shocking. Thomas hadn't been the only person involved. The agreement mentioned Mom. I looked up. Why is my mother here? Michael stepped closer. That's impossible. Mr. Harrison shook his head. Your father discovered that your mother had signed a separate agreement with Thomas years ago. I couldn't speak. Why? We don't know. We drove to Mom's house. She was sitting in the living room when we arrived. The moment she saw the documents in my hand, she knew. You found it. I stopped. You knew. Mom began crying. I was hoping you never would. Michael stepped forward. Mom, what did you do? She looked at him. I didn't steal anything. Then tell us the truth. She lowered her head. Your father and Thomas were partners. We know. But Thomas didn't leave willingly. What happened? Mom looked at me. Your father discovered that Thomas had been stealing from the company. Michael frowned. So Dad forced him out? Yes. Then why did you sign an agreement with him? Mom closed her eyes. Because Thomas threatened me. The room went silent. With what? She hesitated. Something about your father's past. I felt a chill. What past? Mom looked at both of us. Your father had another daughter. Michael stared at her. What? Mom began crying. Before he met me, your father. Envelope. Richard Carter, final will. The room went silent. Mr. Harrison opened it carefully. He read the first page. Then the second. Then he stopped. I asked. What does it say? He looked at me. Your father changed everything 3 days before he died. Michael swallowed. What changed? Mr. Harrison continued reading. The company is not to be transferred to Michael immediately. Michael looked shocked. Then who gets it? Mr. Harrison turned the page. Emily receives temporary control. I looked at him. Temporary? Yes. For how long? Until Laura is found. My heart stopped. And after that? Mr. Harrison read the final clause. Laura becomes the primary beneficiary of the protected family trust. Michael lowered his head. So Dad never intended me to have everything. No, Mr. Harrison said. He intended you to prove you could be trusted before receiving anything. Michael looked at me. I failed. I didn't know what to say. Then the front door opened. Everyone turned. A woman walked into the room. She was about my age. Dark hair. Green eyes. And the same small smile Dad used to have whenever he knew something we didn't. She looked at Mom. Then at me. I'm Laura. Nobody spoke. I walked toward her slowly. You're really Dad's daughter. She nodded. He found me 6 years ago. I froze. 6 years. Yes. Then why didn't he tell us? Because I asked him not to. Why? Laura looked at Mom. Because I wasn't ready to become part of this family. Mom began crying. Laura continued. But Dad kept visiting me. I couldn't believe it. All these years. Yes. She reached into her bag and pulled out a photograph. It showed Dad standing beside her. He looked happy. I've never seen that photograph before. I touched it. He loved you. Laura nodded. I loved him too. Michael slowly walked toward her. I owe you an apology. Laura looked at him. For what? For believing Dad's money belonged to me. She smiled sadly. You weren't the only one. He looked confused. What do you mean? She turned toward me. Dad told me about you. I frowned. What did he say? He said you were the only person in the family who never asked him for anything. Tears filled my eyes. Laura continued. He was proud of you. I looked down. For years, I'd wondered whether Dad thought I mattered as much as Michael. Now I finally had my answer. Mr. Harrison placed the original will on the table. There is one final condition. Everyone looked at him. What condition? I asked. He read. My children must decide together what happens to the family fortune. Michael looked at me. Laura looked at me. Mom began crying again. I took a deep breath. I don't want Dad's money to destroy us. Michael nodded. Neither do I. Laura smiled. Then let's do what Dad wanted. We agreed to keep the company together. I became temporary CEO. Michael stayed involved in the business, but under strict financial oversight. Laura became the primary trustee of the family foundation. And the protected trust was divided according to Dad's final instructions. But there was one thing I couldn't let go. I looked at Mom. Why did you hide Laura from us? She lowered her head. Because I was jealous. The room became silent. I was afraid your father loved her mother more than he loved me. Laura looked surprised. Mom continued. I convinced myself that keeping Laura away would protect our family. I shook my head. It didn't protect us. I know. She wiped her tears. It only created a secret that lasted 30 years. A year later, we returned to Dad's grave. This time, all of us were there. Mom, Michael, Laura, and me. Michael placed flowers on the grave. Then he said, Dad, I finally understand why you didn't give me everything. Laura smiled. You wanted him to earn your trust. I looked at the headstone. He did. Michael looked at me. You think so? Yes. He smiled. I thought inheritance was about what you receive. I nodded. It isn't. Laura added. It's about what you do with it. We stood there quietly. Then my father's phone rang. Everyone froze. For 1 second, nobody moved. Then Michael laughed. It can't be. I reached into my coat. It was Dad's old phone. The same phone that had rung at his funeral. The screen showed a scheduled recording. I pressed play. Dad's voice filled the quiet cemetery. If you're hearing this, then you've finally found each other. My eyes filled with tears. His recording continued. I spent my life building a company. But the company was never my greatest achievement. A pause. My greatest achievement would be knowing that my children chose family over money. Michael lowered his head. Laura wiped away a tear. Dad's final words were simple. Don't inherit my fortune. Inherit the lesson. The recording ended. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then I looked at my brother and my sister. For years, I had believed my family had been torn apart by money. But I finally understood. Money hadn't destroyed us. Secrets had. And Dad's final plan wasn't about deciding who deserved his fortune. It was about giving us one last chance to tell the truth. Sometimes, the biggest inheritance isn't a house. It isn't a business. And it isn't millions of dollars. Sometimes, it's the family you almost lost. And the truth that finally brings everyone home.